Hey there. So welcome back. This is another episode about Venus retrograde. I recorded one called The Mysteries of the Goddess a couple of weeks ago, where I was really talking about the themes of this particular Venus retrograde from Aries into Pisces, looking at the retrograde charts and then the chart of when Venus goes direct again from 24 degrees Pisces. In this particular video, what I want to do is dive even deeper and get a real feel for the intrinsic patterns associated with Venus that can also give us a greater understanding. So, maybe if you're already into astronomy or like looking up at the night sky or the morning sky, you might have noticed that there are some times of the year where you can see the morning star, which is Venus, in the morning sky, or you can see Venus in the sky and she's known as the evening star. So I'm going to sort of explain this and a little bit about the Venus star points and the Venus pattern. Now, this isn't my discovery at all. And I learned about this through reading Ariel Gutman's book and also watching a podcast. I think it was the Astrology podcast that interviewed Ariel Gutman. And I remember watching it a couple of years ago and thinking, wow, that's fascinating. And so I absolutely recommend buying this book, by the way. And so I'm going to be referring to some of the ideas that have come out of this book. Not too much, because I do recommend buying it, by the way. So, but we're going to have a look at the morning star and the evening star. And the reason being is, as of yesterday, when the Venus retrograde Cazimi occurred, that is the time when the evening star Venus kind of disappears from the sky. We don't see her anymore. She's dying her death, and she's going to be reborn. She'll come up. We'll start seeing her again from the 26th of March. And she will be reborn in the morning sky. So there is this this moment in the Venus journey where she dies to her old self and is reborn. And then similarly later on, so many months down the road, the morning star Venus will appear to disappear and reappear as the evening star. So I want to have a look at that pattern and how that has relevancy to you right now, and also to the world at the moment. I have to say I'm a little nervous about it because this is bringing out a much more forthright kind of energy from all of us. Also, I'm going to be talking about zero Aries, which is obviously a really relevant point right now, seeing as the sun's already crossed it and we've gone into our new astrological year. But, we've got so much going over that this year. And then talking, applying it into your own chart so you can understand what it might mean. Now, I am going to talk about how it reemerges in your chart. But if you want to look at it specifically in terms of all 12 houses, like if you know where Venus is coming up, and I'll show you how to find it, I've created a video. I did a little webinar, a deep dive Venus webinar a couple of weeks ago on school.com /Feel Good Astrology. So if you want to have a look at it, you can always subscribe to that community. And then there's a video with little forecasts according to where Venus is re-emerging for you. Okay, so evening star versus morning star. The first thing to, if you want to see if you're an evening star person or a morning star person, here's an example of two different charts of two sisters. That's me and that's my sister, my younger sister. When I look at a chart, I'm always looking anti-clockwise, not clockwise. So you all the planets go this way unless they're retrograde. And so to find out if you're an evening star person, see what is leading. Is Venus leading or is the sun leading? Where the sun is leading, i.e. is first, is ahead of the sun. Remember, they're never going to be that far away from each other. So, your Venus and sun, they're never going to be like at different sides of the chart together. They're always going to be close in proximity. So the Venus that is leading the sun, that's an evening star Venus. And the Venus that is behind the sun, where the sun is leading, that's known as a morning star Venus. So, there are particular times of the season where the morning star Venus is in the sky, and that's the one that we see. That's when Venus is behaving more in a morning star Venus way. And during the time when we've got the evening star up in the sky, the Venus energy is exuded more according to the evening star energy. Now, Ariel Gutman, from her own observations and studying and looking sort of backwards, at previous events and cycles and things, has compared the evening star Venus to being a lot more cerebral and celestial, and as such, she has been compared a little bit to Europa. She is a higher harmonic of love. She is thinking about fairness and generosity and forgiveness and empathy and compassion. So very much in the sort of cerebral, sort of head and heart combination. Whereas the morning star is a lot more terrestrial. So you might think heart and body. So it's like head and heart and body. That's how I'm sort of experiencing it. So, there are two signs of the zodiac that are ruled by Venus, and one is Libra, which is an air sign, and the other is Taurus, which is an earth sign. And so Taurus has been compared a little bit to the terrestrial Venus, and the celestial Venus is more Libra-like. So if you think of the Libra-like, it's sort of diplomatic. Let's find a nice balance. Let's try and talk about things. So it is very much about empathy and all sides. Whereas the morning star is a lot more in the body and is a lot more about feeling comfortable in the body and really feeling love in the body. And so morning star Venus people tend to be a lot more openly beautiful, a lot more invested in their body and how they are in their body, a lot more concerned with comfort, in particular beauty and comfort mixed together. And they're a bit more strident. So the energy is a lot more warrior-like. And so Venus might well show her she might stand up for causes a little bit more, whereas the evening star Venus is more likely to talk about it and try to come to some agreement. And so if you think Venus is the energy of relating and relatedness, like you're relating to another person through love, you might be relating with money and value, so there's values and relatedness. Morning star Venus is relating in more of a physical way. So she's a bit more sexual. She's a bit more of a screen siren. And the evening star Venus is a little bit more, head in the clouds. And that certainly describes both me and my sister. But, if you are looking at our charts, you'll see my sister's a Taurus and I'm a Sagittarius. And so, my sister definitely seems a bit more in her body than I am. So anyway, let's move on to the pattern that Ariel Gutman is talking about in her amazing book. Now, what was noticed and spoken about? Now, this isn't from Ariel's book. This is a search that I did on astro-seek.com. I wanted to look at the Venus retrograde or the Venus Cazimi patterns. And so what was observed is that there's a regular period of time between every Venus and Sun conjunction, and that all the superior conjunctions, is when, if I just, so a superior conjunction would be where the Sun catches up to Venus and they make a conjunction. And then the inferior conjunctions is when you've got Venus, like if Venus is here but going retrograde, when the retrograde Venus catches the Sun, that's known as an inferior conjunction. And so if I show you here, you'll see that every other conjunction between Venus and the Sun is either through retrograde or it's direct, retrograde, direct, retrograde, direct, all the way through. It's just a fixed pattern. And what Ariel Gutman realized was that these conjunctions, all the superior conjunctions, exist within a pattern of fives, and all the inferior conjunctions also belong in a series of fives. And so what I'm going to show you is the current one we're at right now is an inferior retrograde conjunction. So the Sun and Venus got together yesterday at 2 degrees 39 in the sign of Aries. That's where their exact conjunction was on the 23rd of March 2025. And I've just put it here. I've plotted it here. The next, here it is. The next inferior conjunction will be at 0 degrees Scorpio. There it is. on October the 24th, 2026. So it's a little while away. Then the next inferior conjunction will be in 2028 at 11 degrees Gemini. And so you see, if you go through all 5 of these inferior conjunctions in their cycle, they will draw out a 5-pointed star, a pentagram. So that's the Venus star. And these are all Venus star points. Now, similarly, if you map out the superior conjunctions and go from one to another, to another, to another, to another, you'll get a 5-pointed star. So it's always drawing the star. And then once you've done the star, it repeats. So if I go to the next inferior conjunction in Aries, so the next time we get the same star point that we've got right now, that's in 2033, and that inferior, and I've put an arrow there, it's almost returned to the same spot. So currently it's at 2 degrees Aries. The next time this particular Venus star point comes around, it's at 0 degrees Aries. And that pattern will continue. So each of these star points is shifting approximately 2 degrees in each full cycle. And so this is a continuous pattern. Now, one of the things that Ariel's book does is it helps you to find which Venus star point you were born into. And so I was actually born into a Scorpio, an evening star Scorpio star point. So I'm an evening star, and my Venus star point is in Scorpio. Actually, it's right on my ascendant. And she does in her book talk about the importance of where your star point is in your chart. It's usually a very sort of magical place. It's a very important place where you'll be sort of exuding your Venus energy. But what she also says is that according to our star point, there will be certain other star points that come in to work with us in our lifetime. And interestingly, so she says you have a description of I've written, you'll have a description of which other Venus star points show up in your life. Well, one of the things that was interesting to me was that my first boyfriend of 11 years, his Venus star point was in Aries. My husband's Venus star point is in Aries too. So that's kind of interesting. I've got a lot of really close friends whose Venus star point is in Aries. And so those two are working together. And it's interesting that I've just attracted loads of them into my life. Similarly, my partner's previous relationship was with another Scorpio star point. So both of our exes are the same star point as we are. So there's no surprises there. And then when you look at your children, if you've got children, or when you look at your parents and you see their star points, my parents are both star points that work with me. And interestingly, my husband's mum is also one of those star points. And so there is this kind of karmic pattern that's emerging through this particular science. So it's definitely worth having a look at. Once you start looking at that, you'll be thinking in terms of, oh, I wonder if my life started to change around one of these star points. That's going to be something I'm going to come to in a second. But yeah, here's a couple of ways that you can do it yourself. So you can buy Ariel Gutman's book. Or here's another way. You could go to, like I go to astro-seek.com, because I think it's really good to easily and quickly search for particular aspects. But if you were to look for a list of Venus-Sun conjunctions and look for the one right before you were born, find out if it was retrograde or whether Venus was direct. So if it was retrograde, it will, you'll see near here. So like right now, this current Venus and Sun conjunction was a retrograde. It's got an RX, which is, what we have next to things when they're retrograde. So the RX is referring to Venus going retrograde, but you'll see next to it, it says morning star. And then if it's not retrograde, if it's just the sun catching up to Venus, then it's an evening star. So that will give you a bit of an idea. And obviously you can check your star point out with her book. Now, I just need to just go back a second. Let me just take this off. So with the morning star and the evening star, what fascinates me, and this fits into lots of different mythologies and things. I can't remember the one that I was going to tell you about off the top of my head. I didn't write it down on my notes, but the idea that Venus comes down like the evening star, she goes, she disappears from view, and then a few days later, sometimes it's a couple of weeks later, she comes back up as the morning star. And so I searched for this. I did a search on the web to find out when the morning star was going to reappear, because astronomers know, and it was really simple. It was a very simple search. And so I looked at where she was re-emerging, like what degree of the zodiac is she re-emerging at? And she's re-emerging at 0 Aries, which is absolutely the key degree right now. And the reason why I think it's the key degree right now is obviously because the sun has just gone into Aries, signaling the start of the astrological new year. Obviously, we've got Neptune going over 0 Aries on the 30th or the 31st, according to where you are in the world. Or it might even be the 29th, I think, in North America. And I think it might just be in the tip of the 31st if you're in Australia. I've seen it written all 3 dates. For me, it's the 30th in the London time zone. So Neptune's going over. On the same day that Neptune's going into Aries, Mercury is going into Pisces. So they're doing a complete switch right over that. That's a very, very strong day. We've got Saturn going over there at the end of May. We've also got Venus and Mercury that went over it initially. They're both retrograding over that point right now. And then they're going to go forward over that point. And obviously the moon goes over this point 13 times a year. So this is really, really important. What I haven't also added in is both Neptune and Saturn are going to go retrograde over that point towards the autumn. And then they're going to go over that point again in February 2026. In fact, they're going to make a conjunction. So Neptune and Saturn, really rare conjunction, doesn't come around very often at all, maybe twice in our lifetime, depending on how long we live. But they are making that conjunction at 0 Aries. Now, what is the significance of that? Well, the ecliptic, which is where we have our zodiac story from, it starts, according to Western tropical ideas, it starts at 0 Aries. And it is like the rebirth. It's the birth of the human story. That's how I see it. That's how I interpret it. And so the birth of the human story starts, from my opinion, at 0 Aries, and then it goes right the way through the story of the zodiac. And as it's coming around the end, and I'll just show you on a chart. Hang on one second. So it starts here, 0 Aries, goes right the way around. And then the last few degrees before it goes into Aries again, it's like 29 degrees in the sign of Pisces. So this is like the ending degree. Now, of course, it's a continuous cycle, and for people who believe in life after death and rebirth and resurrection and things, they see that energy is just cyclical and everything just goes round and round. However, I do see that there is an ending going on right now, and the energy of Pisces, as I see it, at some level, it is also about dissolution, like we are dissolving our stories. And Aries, the start of Aries is like we're born, we're a force of nature. We are like beginning our stories. We are deciding who we are. Like if you think of a baby, it comes through, it's actively picking up stories left, right, and center. And then throughout his life or her life, those stories form into a narrative, and we have our personality and our experience and our mindset, which is obviously determining our experience, keeps going, and it kind of rolls and rolls and rolls. And I think, as we come to the end of our life, we're starting to lose some of those stories. Some of those stories don't seem so relevant anymore, and we let go of the resonance of them, and they start to dissolve. And some people, they lose their mind as well. They kind of forget who they are. They start to check out before their body does. And so, right now we've got a lot going over this point in both ways. So I do think we are restarting a new story and also checking out of an old one, and doing it many times, not just in one way, but in many ways through the medium of the different planets. And it's something, like I've noticed this with relatives that I've seen and friends who I've seen who've sort of got Alzheimer's, that they have these moments where they are their personality again, and then it goes. So it is almost like a flickering. We've had storms here recently, and our electricity was flickering on and off, on and off, on and off. It's like we are ready to start a new story, and yet we are also having some downtime from it as well. So my question to you is, like, what does 0 Aries mean to you? And I wanted to show you the Sabian symbol for Aries, 0 Aries, which is actually called Aries 1 in Sabian symbols, because the Sabian symbols are always rounded up. But this is really interesting, because this is where Venus is reconstituting as the morning star. This is where she's coming back as her forthright warrior self, where she's a lot more about physical comfort and really being strong in her convictions. And this Aries 1, or 0 Aries point, is called "A Woman Has Risen out of the ocean. A seal is embracing her." Well, isn't that interesting? Because Venus, the birth of Venus, is often seen, her coming out of a shell in the ocean. So this degree is the beginning of the zodiac, where the old gets left behind and a new understanding and awareness comes to light. Something new is emerging, and it needs to be welcomed and nurtured. I mean, that's interesting, I think. This is a beginning of a whole new impulse, creative and responsive. There's an emergence of a whole new potentiality. Resist looking back to outgrown and unsatisfactory conditions in your life, as they can pull you back to old and unrewarding ways of being. This is also about finding your voice and your feet, which is kind of remarkable, because this is the more physical Venus that we're talking about right now. Beginnings, emergence of the feminine into concrete manifestation. Again, the morning star Venus, she is a lot more concrete than her celestial sister. Cycles beginning, the beginning of spring and autumn. Confidence in a whole new arena of being, shedding old skins. Now, she does say, these are the Linda Hill Sabian symbols, by the way, and I absolutely recommend that you check her out. www.sabiansymbols.com, not to be confused with an actual musical website about symbols called Sabian Symbols, but that symbol is spelt with a C. This is 2 S's. But there's always a little warning about kind of what happens, if the energy gets a bit stuck. And it's saying using the masculine drive to overshadow the emotions, refusing to move on into a new state of being because you're held back by previous life conditions. So anywhere where you're feeling stuck right now, it's time to kind of shake it off because this new Venus is coming in to shed old skins and to bring about a whole new being. Now, I have to say I'm a little worried about this because I don't think astrology should just be read on its own. I don't think, just one thing comes up and boom, there's the energy change. I always think that there's a layering that's going on astrologically. And so, were it just Venus coming back as a morning star at 0 Aries, I would say, oh, well, that's interesting. That's a bit peppy. That's a bit new. Yeah, bring her on. Fantastic. But actually, we've also got Neptune changing signs, and I will be talking about Neptune in an actual Neptune and Aries video. But yeah, there's some massive shifts happened last time Neptune went into Aries. It's kind of warlike. I'm also in the middle of recording my video, my forecasts from the total solar eclipse, the partial solar eclipse, the new moon in Aries, this coming 29th, right the way through to the next full moon, which is on the 13th of April, the day when Venus goes direct, by the way, just out of interest, in the sign of Libra, which is also another Venus thing. So this Venus theme is so strong. But in this next 2-week forecast period that I'm working on right now, as we're coming up to the new moon in the full moon in Libra, there is this blooming great big grand cross that's emerging. So if you want to hear about that, look out for my forecast, because grand crosses can build up so much pressure that things can really blow. And of course, we've just gone through eclipse season, which creates a massive blow energy, and then Neptune changing signs. So to me, there's a lot, and I don't want to say this outwardly because, I do think what we're all believing starts to manifest. However, I think it's important that we can understand some of the mechanics of what might be going on right now. And so what was really coming up is how there's really short tempers, and Venus coming into her full bodily form from the 26th, when she starts to rise up as a morning star at 0 degrees Aries, is a little bit worrying to me, because I think the celestial Venus, the evening star Venus, can hold it together a little bit better. She can sit back a little bit, but this is the energy coming into the fray. Now, obviously, there are lots of people right now that are wanting to go into full protest mode. And, obviously, I do think it's important that people are expressing themselves, but seeing like the tinderbox of energy that's going on right now, I have to say I'm a little concerned about. And the reason I'm sharing it is so that, if you are concerned about it, you might want to think about, okay, well, what might happen in a massive tinderbox kind of energy? Again, I do think this is about layering. And, in all the years I've been looking at astrological charts, this year is one of the biggest years that we will know in our lifetime. This will surpass what's gone on with COVID. Pretty sure of that. And that was based on a really, really rare bit of astrological timing. To me, it just feels like all of the clocks, the astrological clocks, if there are loads of alarms going off, they're all coming around. If you think of all the planets as being different hands on a clock, their placements right now are making some really important times. And we are coming into just this most important time of change, like deep, deep change that is severing our ideas of who we are and what we're here about, what we're here to do. And you will probably have been experiencing this at a personal level as well. So, for instance, I do believe that, as above, so below, and what's going on within is also going on outside of you. And I really think that's getting stronger and stronger. And so I actually think that one of the side effects of Neptune going to Aries is we will get to be the responsibility of what is unseen about us. So any unseen patterns that we're holding in ourselves, boy, will they get triggered. I'm really sure of it. I'm already experiencing a little bit of it. Something I said, not meaning to cause any offense to anyone, obviously, something was heard by somebody, and they've reported, like they've said something about it, twisting all of my words, saying I said things that I didn't say. They've made a meaning out of something that I've said and gone full blown angry about it. And that wouldn't be a problem for a lot of people. A lot of people would be, well, that's not going to touch me. But if you've already got a program going on inside of you that you might be misunderstood, or that you might be scapegoated, or if you've got some kind of like negative belief about yourself, some self-sabotage going on, then this kind of energy can really pull your self-sabotage out and really kind of make you face it. These are very, very affronting times. And so I think, if you know what's going on inside you in terms of your own self-sabotage, but B, if you know that also people are all quite nuts at the moment, every one of us, no matter what we believe, we're all really feeling things at the moment, and we're all being confronted, by each other, then you get a sense of what's going on and what could come out of it. And that could be that we have amazing social change. And yet it could also be that, people get into massive ruckuses, and, we are really coming into the fray. So anyway, what I want to show you now is how to do your own investigations, because I think astrology should always be, or I don't want to should you, because that's boring, isn't it? But anyway, I think astrology is really helpful when we can see how it applies to us. So again, I'm using my own chart. And I'm also referring you back to what was going on in 2017, because that was the last time when Venus went retrograde over this particular part of our charts. So in particular, from the 4th of March 2017, Venus was at 13 degrees Aries. When it went retrograde this time, it was at 10 degrees Aries, so only 3 degrees difference. And then it went back to 26 Pisces. Ours is going back to 24 Pisces. So can you see, since the last Venus star point, and this retrograde associated with it in the last cycle, it has automatically shunted back 2 degrees, and we'll be going through a similar one in 2033. So here's what I offer you. First of all, what change was going on for you in 2017? Now, these retrograde periods with Venus is changing the way you relate to something, and internalizing the way you relate to something. And it will be determined by where it's showing up in your chart. So for me, and this is using a Placidus system. This is, I'll show you the difference in a second. But we're using a Placidus system. Venus was going retrograde in my 5th house, and it was ending in my 4th house. And it was quite interesting because at that time, my husband and I were working and volunteering on site of a large charity in the southwest of England. A fantastic place. We had a great time. We were raising our 2 children there, and it was a real sort of family energy, and we were doing some good, or we felt that we were doing some good. And the charity got into some financial difficulties, and it was all kind of pulled apart. And my husband was made redundant, and we were living there. You know, we were part of the community. We were living there and working there at the same time. So not only was his job changing, but we would also need to move house. And so this happening here shifted both of our lives in quite a strong way. As I said, my husband is an Aries star point person himself. So yeah, this caused a massive shift for us. And, you know, it was that year that we moved. Literally 3 months later, we were living in Portugal, and we were starting to work for ourselves in a whole new way. So it put us on a completely different path. So it took 3 months for us to make the shift, but the first sign that there was a change came during this retrograde time, and boy, did it bring up a lot of stuff. So we're going through this same retrograde right now, and it would be interesting to see what new things are coming in that might shift how we live and maybe how we work. For me in particular, you know, I was spending a lot of time with my children and volunteering, which was, we were part of the community, which was very much how I enjoyed myself. It was lifting me up, and I was practicing astrology, but it was very much part-time, or not even half part-time. You know, it was just really in the background at that point, because I had very, very small children. But yeah, it did affect my home. And of course, the 4th is about the home, and the 5th is about how you experience joy, and it's about your children. So this shift's going on. So how do you do your own investigations? Well, the first thing I would say is bring up your chart in your favorite system or favored system. I'll show you here. So this is my chart in Placidus. You'll see that these 12 houses, as they're known, and they're not all evenly distributed. Some are bigger than others, but you've got this very, you can see the 4 quadrants easily set out. And then around the outside, you can see where Venus is at the start of her retrograde, and this is where she will be at the end. This is my chart if I use a whole sign chart layout. Now, lots of people prefer to use whole sign. It's much easier to learn with, and I believe quite a few astrologers use it for predictions. So it's entirely up to you which one you choose to use. And I did these on astro.com. So if you're new to astrology, obviously use whatever platform you want to use, but I really recommend astro.com. It does a lot of stuff that, and I teach using it because it's free. So however you look at it, here if I'm using a whole sign system, Venus is going retrograde in my 6th, and she'll end in my 5th. Here it's from my 5th to my 4th. Interestingly, there's similar themes going on. You know, there are themes of this Venus retrograde going on in my 6th and my 5th, and my 5th and my 4th. You know, the 6th is very much about your health and the way you manage your life, getting your house in order, getting your finances in order, getting the routines needed to be able to do what you need to do. So it's really revising how you're doing your life and how you relate to the life that you've built for yourself. So that's definitely showing up as quite a theme as well right now. But if it ends in the 5th is like, are you enjoying your life? What could lift you up more? And concerns to do with your children. So have a look, you know, bring your chart up in the way that you want to. And then look at which house is 0 Aries in. Now, interestingly for me, 0 Aries is the cusp between the 5th and the 6th, or it's literally in the 6th house in this whole sign. But funnily enough, in my actual Placidus chart, 0 Aries actually is the 5th house cusp. So it really is the start of a new window. These cusps, these areas here are super strong at initiating energy. So yeah, look at where Aries is, 0 Aries, and also look at where 24 Pisces is and 10 Aries is. So yeah, so 10 Aries. So you see that these are always divided into 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So Venus went retrograde here. I don't have any planets here. I do have Pluto exactly in opposition, almost. And you can see my Venus is also in a square to my natal Venus. And then at 24 degrees, she's very close to my Juno. I don't always put her in charts on these videos, but just to have a look at what you've got there. And if that means anything. Again, if you want to know a little bit more about the interpretations, just go to www.school, that's SKOOL.com/feelgoodastrology. And then in there, if you join my community, you'll see that there is a video called the Venus Deep Dive, which you can watch. And then I'll talk about what's going on with Venus re-emerging in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and so on and so forth. So wherever Venus is coming back, what that might mean, how are you mobilizing that strident Venus energy into your life? That's the big question. So she is going to go direct. This is the chart of when she stops going retrograde. You'll see she's in a conjunction with Saturn. She's also in a conjunction with the North Node and Mercury and Neptune. She's in a trine with Mars, and she's also in a square with Jupiter, really showing her frustration to get moving and to get things really working quite quickly. This was how I quickly jotted down that energy in my head. It's like she's moving from, her journey from Pisces is deeply personal and life-changing. She's making a commitment. That's the conjunction to Saturn and the North Node, a commitment to being herself, to be able to articulate her mysterious new directions. That's Mercury and Neptune. Connecting to pussy power, because obviously she's a lot more physical, and her sexual feminine energy. And she's integrating it all, and she's taking action on it all. So when she does move forwards again, so, you know, ultimately she is still retrograde when she appears as the morning star, but she's still going backwards for a bit longer. So whatever is coming up for you when she rises as the morning star, you know, that energy that is fostered, this sort of like newfound delight in being her body, and loving her body and feeling comfortable and feeling kind of fired in her body. She's going to bring that with her in a really, really powerful way. So whatever is going on for you right now, I think there are some really big opportunities to settle something and to really start this kind of new way forwards. Last thing I want to share with you, and this is the Sabian symbol for where she goes direct. And it's called the purging of the priesthood. This This shows seeing through those who hold important positions yet abuse trust, and those who make great claims but don't live up to them. At this time, you're likely to find yourself leaving others behind, kicking them out, experiencing falls from grace. Periodically, there's a need to examine moral or spiritual sincerity. It's easy to allow those who don't really belong to stay because of familiarity or habit. We can lose sight of the ideal through our rationalizing intellect and ego and emotive passion. There is a need to cleanse and purify your life, leading to better spiritual values. What side of the purging are you on? Are you the one with the right motives? Who's in charge? Things holding you back, revealing the truth, throwing out what doesn't measure up, dismissals on redundancies, being a hotshot or not, betrayal of trust, cover-ups. So, I really just think whatever is going on right now, hold on to your hats. Like, seriously, hold on to your hats. Because things are really hotting up, and I'll be reporting more with the 2-week forecasts at the end of this week, and also about Neptune going into Aries in a much bigger and more meaningful way. But suffice to say, these are massive times, and if you're ready for a deep change and to really turbocharge yourself, now is the time. So there you go. I hope that's helpful. I have been asked quite a lot recently if I'm ready to do readings with people, and I am. So I'm ready to get booked up again. So if you do want to work with me, all you have to do is check out the links below and just book in a reading. Anyway, lots and lots of love to you. Thanks for joining me, and catch you another time. Bye for now.